we are rolling right into our next session. I am joined here by Nathan Hill, Vice President of Marketing at NextAfter. Nathan is absolutely incredible. If you saw him during the Digital Fundraising Summit this summer, so much great insights to share. If you're wondering more about what NextAfter is a fundraising consultancy, research lab, and institute on a mission to unleash generosity. He has trained thousands of nonprofit marketers and fundraisers in proven online fundraising strategies, including PBS, Save the Children, the Humane Society, and more. You are all in for a real treat with Nathan, and wanted to also shout out and thank NextAfter for being a sponsor for the year-end fundraising fair. So thanks, Nathan, for being here, and thanks for sponsoring.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that wonderful and gracious intro. I'm pumped to be here. I'm pumped to talk about year-end fundraising. I've got my coffee, I've had a couple cups, and I'm ready to turn it on and let's dive in here. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I assume you can hear me okay, see me okay?
Yep, looks good. Thanks.
All right, wonderful. Well, let's jump right in. So today we're going to talk about year-end fundraising. Obviously, we're talking about year-end fundraising throughout this entire event, but we're going to focus a little bit more specifically on digital fundraising during year-end and how you can start to build your email fundraising playbook specifically to lead donors towards greater generosity during the season. So everything we're going to talk about is actually based on what we do with different organizations we work with that we've tested and proven can lead to greater giving during the most critical giving season of the year. Now, when I first set out to put this presentation together, it actually wasn't for this summit. It was for a different summit. It's our own summit called the Nonprofit Innovation and Optimization Summit, which is like a conference where you go and you sit in a room full of people, which if you haven't done this in the past 2 years, it's incredible. And it was kind of overwhelming to be with other people for the first time in a long time. You go and you sit in a room and you hear from lots of like super smart and really interesting people. And in this case, a lot of people, even from the for-profit space, with really innovative ideas to bring to the table for us as fundraisers and as nonprofit communicators. And then you meet a bunch of super cool, interesting, awesome people all rallying around this cause of how do we grow generosity using innovation. And you have a ton of fun doing it. I think these guys are like blasting aliens. And then there were Oompa Loompas, and it was a ton of fun. And as I'm putting this presentation together for the NEO Summit, if you know anything about me personally, I'm like a huge Star Wars nerd. And so I was thinking, if we're going to talk about something as critical and epic as year-end fundraising, we should really look at it through an interesting lens that's equally as critical and epic. So naturally, my mind goes to Star Wars. And so I sat down, I pulled out my iPad, and I'm like sketching some like really nerdy stuff. So this is a map of the like entire Star Wars universe. You've got like the core worlds, and you've got the outer rim and the unknown regions. And my thought was, we've got donors at all these different places. Some are way out here, some are all the way towards the core worlds, but ultimately they need to get to the same point of giving and generosity, even though they come from a variety of different motivations and backgrounds and levels of interest and levels of giving and different passions. And then I ended up having to scratch all this because it was starting to get way too in the weeds. And I was thinking, well, we can make some like really kind of nerdy applications or analogies around how do we inject coaxium into the fuel line like they do in the Solo movie, and they launch themselves out of the gravity well, and it was too far. And I think there's a lesson here to be learned, which is that we as fundraisers and people that work for these incredible causes day in and day out, we can get pretty attached to specific aspects of our cause. There's specific programs going on in our organizations. The things that get us like really riled up and impassioned are the things we naturally are going to write about, say in an email or in a direct mail appeal. But not every single donor is going to connect with the same exact passions and interests and motivations that you have. In fact, they're coming from lots of different motivations and passions and interests. And so how we craft our campaigns has to take into understanding that people are coming from all these different varieties of motivations. In my case, as I'm diving into this like really nerdy Star Wars analogy, I'm excited about it, but it was really going to miss the mark with probably most people that were in the room. So I had to take this step back and realize there's probably a different way we need to frame things. And that might be the case in our year-end campaigns. My friend John Powell, borrowing this analogy from him, he likes to look at year-end campaigns through the lens of like crafting and cutting a diamond. Because if you're trying to go get a diamond that's going to shine most brilliantly, you don't just go buy the biggest one. Now, that's certainly a factor, the size of it, but maybe the most important factor in the likelihood of a diamond to shine most brilliantly is all of the different cuts and all of the different angles and all of the different facets that angle the light towards the center and ultimately make it sparkle. And the same thing happens in our campaigns and in our year-end fundraising campaigns. Specifically, we can't just get too narrow-minded in terms of one aspect or one program or one type of campaign at our organization. We have to paint this broad picture using a lot of different angles and facets in order to help our cause shine most brilliantly for donors to be able to find their place in it and trust you with a gift in order to see an impact that they care about. This could be more difficult than it sounds, and it also might mean we have to send a lot more emails and communications than maybe you're used to sending. But before we dive into how to actually do that and how to do that in an effective way without just burning out your email file, I want to talk just for a moment about why we should care so much about year-end fundraising, because I don't want anyone to miss this. Many of you, especially if you're attending this summit, you probably know exactly how much is at stake during year-end. But I've learned over the course of the past couple of years, talking more about year-end fundraising, that there's many of us that don't know how much is really at stake. Maybe you've heard of other organizations that see tremendous results, but you haven't seen those for yourself. So let's look at some of the data around what's at stake. And at NextAfter, Candace shared a little bit of this, but essentially our goal and our focus is to help nonprofits grow their digital fundraising. And there's three ways that we do that. We're a research lab, we're a digital first agency, and we're a training institute. But I want to focus on this research lab component for a moment, because there's two types of research that we do. One of them we call forensic research, where we're going to go out into the marketplace, and oftentimes we become these mystery donors. And in this case, the State of Year-End Multi-Channel Fundraising Study we just released a couple months ago. We went out and we donated to 119 organizations to try to understand how do they use multi-channel tactics in their fundraising, and then specifically during the year-end window, which we consider November 15th through the end of the year, how are they using multi-channel to communicate with both offline donors and online donors? So this is just getting like a state of the industry. What are we doing? But it's not telling us what actually works, which is the second component of the research that we conduct. We're going to take these different ideas that we see out in the marketplace, and we're actually going to A/B test them and try to prove, using data, using science, using statistics, what actually works to grow giving, what actually works to grow generosity. So putting these two types of research together can really give us a clear picture of what's going to lead to greater giving. And so one of the first questions that we asked as we set out on this adventure, if you will, to understand what are nonprofits doing during year end, is we needed to see, well, how much revenue actually comes in during this season. As we look at the different organizations that we work with here at NextAfter, we found that 35% of giving for the entire year came in during the year-end season, during 2020, which is a pretty significant amount. Again, we look at the year-end window as November 15th to the end of the year. So in 45 days, 35% of online giving came in. Now you may say, well, you just told me that you work to grow digital fundraising campaigns and grow digital giving, and like, yes, but maybe this data is skewed because of who you're looking at, and okay, that's fair. But let's look at some other data. According to Neon One, nearly 1/3 of annual giving occurs in December. It's 31%, which is a different time frame, but it's still basically saying the same thing. According to Bloomerang and Pursuant, 50% of nonprofits receive a majority of their annual donations during Q4, which again is different, but it's really saying the same thing, which is that there's so much revenue at stake during the year-end season. And so we have to come to the table and participate and connect with our donors. If we don't, well, then how can we actually expect anyone to give? We can't expect this level of result if we don't actually connect in a meaningful and effective way with our donors. But what's interesting is that many of us are actually opting out of communication during this critical season, whether intentionally or not. Here's what the data says. 37% of nonprofits actually sent nothing at all, not even a postcard, nothing, to their offline donor or to their postal donor during the year-end season. Again, most critical giving season of the year, and zero connection with donors. Now, the online donor, the story's a little bit different. It's a little bit better, but still, it's about 1 in 10 organizations that aren't sending so much as a single email to their online donor, someone who has given to them this year via an online channel. They're not connecting with them in any way whatsoever, let alone an effective and meaningful way. So we have to come to the table, participate during year end if we want to see these types of results, the 35% of giving for the year coming in online. And as we think about year end, it's easy to get hyper-focused on some specific giving days. So I want to bring some clarity to really where should our focus be? Because there's all sorts of talk all the time about Giving Tuesday, and rightfully so, because it's rapidly growing. Every single year it grows by huge margins. I think this past year it grew like 56% in terms of online revenue brought in, which is pretty incredible. And there's a lot of value in Giving Tuesday. In fact, some research would say that it's particularly effective at acquiring new donors. So there's a lot of value here. But if we look at the revenue brought in just on Giving Tuesday compared to, say, the last day of the year, the story is a little bit different. Because Giving Tuesday brings in 4.6% of online revenue for the year-end season. But December 31st, that day alone, brings in 253% more revenue than Giving Tuesday. And then if you zoom out just a little bit and look at the last week of the year in total, well, 734% more revenue comes in during that last week than comes in on Giving Tuesday. So then again, the question is, well, how are nonprofits prioritizing these 2 days? Are we putting most of the eggs in our last week of the year basket? Or are we focused more on Giving Tuesday, or is a bit of both? And here's what we see in the data. Is that 20% of organizations sent mail or had mail arrive in the mailbox during the week of Giving Tuesday. Just 20%. 57%, so a little bit better, 57% actually sent emails during the week of Giving Tuesday. So there's some level of connection. But keep these numbers in mind. We've got 20% versus 57%. Now let's look at the last week of the year. How does this compare? The numbers are almost exactly the same. 18% of organizations sent mail during the last week of the year, 58% sent email, which leads us to conclude that there's really minimal difference in how nonprofits treat these 2 days. There's kind of equal priority being given to both Giving Tuesday and the last week of the year, despite the clear revenue difference. So I'm not saying that you throw out Giving Tuesday. There's importance and value in Giving Tuesday for sure. You should be participating, you should be present, but we should put our focus in terms of our planning and our execution on the last week of the year, because that's where the most revenue is at stake for you to grow your impact in the next year. So here's the bare minimum year-end fundraising playbook for you. Number one, send something, please. You could take a selfie and you could put it in an email and you could say happy holidays, and that could be it. And that would be better than a lot of organizations. So send something, send literally anything to your donors. Make that connection during the most critical giving season of the year. A fun fact from this research that we conducted was that as a postal donor, as an offline donor, you're actually more likely to hear from other organizations that you have never given to than you are to hear from the organizations that you've given to that year. We received an abundance of mail from organizations we did not give our information to. So there's lots of nonprofits going out and buying or renting lists of addresses of known donors to go try to acquire them this season. So if you don't show up, someone else is going to try to acquire that donor's money this season. So we have to participate. Number two, you want to send during the last week of the year. Again, that's where the majority of revenue comes in. And then third, send during Giving Tuesday, but put them in that priority. That's how you should go about your planning as we're inching closer to the year-end season. Now, beyond that, how do we dive deeper? Because there's a lot more that we can do to engage our donors besides just sending on these 3 different days. How do you tell your story over the course of the whole season without asking for money over and over and over and over and over and over and over again? Because if you just send an appeal and a solicitation every single day, you're going to burn out your email file. Donors are going to start to ignore you. They're probably going to get frustrated. Maybe they'll unsubscribe. We oftentimes are afraid of the unsubscribe. Maybe we shouldn't be. But let's dive in and see how can we actually paint paint this story in the picture's mind, paint this story in the donor's mind over the course of the season without burning out our email files. And the first category of emails I want to look at, we're going to look at 3 different categories. I'm going to give you some different examples of what those emails can look like, but you can use these categories to build your campaign. The first category is called priming and framing. And essentially, a priming and framing email is just like if you're priming a wall to paint it, which is really frustrating. I hate painting. I hate painting walls and things like that, especially the priming part. And I know you have to do it because if you don't prime a wall and you go to put the color on, then you've got to do like 3 or 4 coats. And even then, like, is it really the color you want it to be? You've got to prime it. But it's frustrating for me because you don't actually get to see the end result for a while. You've got to prime it. You don't really see how effective it is until later on. And the same thing really happens in our campaigns, where we need to prime our donors for appeals that are going to come later. Because if we don't prime or cultivate our donors, we can use those words maybe interchangeably here. If we don't prime or cultivate our donors during the season, then our appeals aren't going to be as effective when we send them. So we need to lean into priming, lean into the relationship with our donors before we send appeals to make them even more effective. If you want more of a scientific definition of priming, it's this: the process where someone is exposed to a stimulus that influences how they think or how they feel about something later on. Let's look at a few examples of what these types of emails can look like. There are so many different things that you can do to prime, frame, and cultivate your donors during the season. We're going to look at a few examples. Number one is the survey email. The goal of this survey email is not to go just get a bunch of like demographic info about your donors in order to build a bunch of like email segments or things like that. We're not just trying to figure out like how old they are and where they live and things like that. What we're trying to do with this survey is to build alignment with our donors, to lean into them so that they lean into us and that they would trust us with a donation later on. And ultimately, we are not asking for a donation in this email. So don't put a link in the PS to your donation page. We're just sending a survey to try to build alignment. What does this actually look like? Our friends at Canadian taxpayers sent this email last year. It's a survey email. It says, "Dear supporter," which is actually dear first name, so calling them by their name. "You need to make politicians listen in 2021 because taxpayers are getting squeezed hard. So here's the question. What do you want to say?" And then there's a link to go take a survey. You can read more in the email about the impact of the survey and all of what it's about. You can see more details. And then in the PS, you've got another link to go take the survey. One call to action from this email, not an additional PS to go give, but an additional PS to remind them, oh, go take the survey. Here's the link to go do it. You come to the page and you can see the survey is not actually designed to get things like how old are our donors, so we can run a bunch of different segments. And we're not looking for demographic information. They're asking them questions about things that they value related to the cause in order to get donors to lean in and trust them, ultimately with a donation down the road. So it's a long survey. It's about 24 questions, and it's about different like Canadian policy, tax policy type of stuff, things that their ideal donor cares about. And what's happening is that taxpayers is actually giving them a voice. They're empowering their donors. And as a donor goes through, or a potential donor goes through and takes this survey, they answer these different questions about what they value, what they think is important. What's implicit is that the donor is starting to think, I can trust this organization to advocate on my behalf for these things that I care about. They're giving me a voice and they're going to do something about these things that we both care about together. It's implicit that I can begin to trust them with a donation because they're going to make an impact on something that I care about. So that's really the goal of this survey. Whether you work in policy or you work at a locally focused organization in social services or a food bank or wherever you work, our goal is to build alignment with our donors around shared values using this survey. And then ultimately, after you complete it, you can come to something we call the instant donation page, where it says, thank you for completing the survey. And then it moves right into a donation appeal about how you can give in order to make an impact on these things that you just said are important to you and that you're passionate about. Here's how we're going to make change on those things that you care about. It has a donation form right on the page. And so even in this one little email, it's like a micro campaign that leads from some sort of priming email into a donation appeal right on the instant donation page. But it's also going to set up your future email appeals to be that much more effective. So this is one example of priming that you can bake into your year-end campaign this year. Number two is the Thanksgiving email. Now, some of us watching are here in the States, which is where I'm at. I'm in Texas. Some of us are in Canada. Some of us are in other places that maybe don't even celebrate Thanksgiving. But regardless of where you're at, you can actually send this email. Maybe you don't talk about Thanksgiving, but you lean into the ultimate goal here, which is to thank donors and even just plain old email subscribers, volunteers, people advocating for you for their ongoing support. Because I know Canadian Thanksgiving was several weeks ago, so that's past. If you're in the States, you can send this like the day before or on Thanksgiving, maybe even the day after, and use that as a point of relevance to send an email. But again, regardless of where you're at, you can send an email that says thank you at any time. So we want to thank donors for their ongoing support. We do not want to ask for money in this email, not in a PS, and it can look something like this. This is an email from AmeriCares from a few years ago, and it's sent from a person. It sounds like it's written from a person, and ultimately the call to action does not ask you to give. It asks you to go look at what your support lets us do every day. You click on that link and you can actually go watch a video outlining how you, the donor, were able to make such an impact on this important cause. Here's another example from Food for the Hungry. I received this in my inbox this past year. It says your impact report right at the top. As you read into the copy, this is sent right after Thanksgiving. Remembering that Thanksgiving was very different last year as we weren't able to travel nearly as much as even we are today, even though there's still restrictions. It says, even though your holiday may have looked a bit different this year, I hope you and your family still enjoyed a happy Thanksgiving. So leaning into the holiday, leaning into the relevancy, and then moving down, it says, your gracious support helps raise people living in poverty. They're giving me the credit for the impact. Your partnership with us helped save her children from malnutrition. It's told the story of impact, and now it's giving me the credit for that impact. It makes me feel really good about my support of this organization. Even if I'm not a donor, even as a subscriber, they're giving me credit for the work that I've done to just follow the cause and maybe advocate for the cause. And as you scroll down, it might be natural to start to insert a donation call to action. If you've told a really interesting story, shared some testimonials about impact, you could very easily say, will you give in order to make more of this impact? But we're not going to in this email. We're just thanking people. And their ultimate call to action just says see more. So you can click that button, you can go read more stories of how incredible of an impact that I, the donor, have been able to make this year just through my giving. It makes me feel really, really good. And we're just expressing gratitude and thanks on Thanksgiving. Now, you can even use a multi-channel strategy to try to do this. This is a really interesting experiment from one nonprofit a couple years ago, where they set out at the beginning of the year-end season. So basically right on Thanksgiving, they sent this postcard to half their donor file. It says a Thanksgiving message for you, first name, it was personalized. You open it up, and it has a note from the president of the organization thanking them for their ongoing support, talking about the holiday, and there's a link to actually go watch a video on a web page, on a landing page, where you could hear from the president of the organization, hear their heart for the work that they do, thank the donor for the impact that they've been able to make this year. Half their donor file got this on Thanksgiving. The other half just got the same cadence of normal communication. And what this did, this one change actually led to a 204% increase in the likelihood of someone giving them a year-end donation, all because they leaned into cultivation and they primed donors for appeals that would come later on. So you can do this through email. You can also do this through direct mail and use more of a multi-channel strategy. Priming email number 3 is the free offer. The goal here ultimately is to give donors something of value for free. Could be something like an ebook, but it's not like free in exchange for a donation. It's not a premium offer. It's really, truly just free. We're trying to build value into our donors, and we're going to use that instant donation page we talked about in the survey email. This is what the model looks like. So you can send an email talking about whatever your free offer is. Maybe it's a video series about some impact you've been able to make. Maybe it's an ebook, maybe it's a course. I don't know what the offer is exactly for you, but some sort of content that they can access for free in exchange for their email address. The email sends you to a landing page where you can read about the offer. In this case, with the Texas State Historical Association, this was a Giving Tuesday campaign that they ran using this free offer idea. Get the Portable Handbook of Texas ebook for free. You read about it on the landing page. You understand the value of the offer and of the content. You fill out the form at the bottom, and this gets sent to your inbox. And then instead of a confirmation page that just says like, hey, thanks, will you share this on Facebook or Twitter or whatever? you come to an instant donation page that still says thanks and then moves directly into a donation appeal. The strategy can be highly, highly effective. But you might be wondering, why do I actually need to ask them for their email address if I already emailed them? I already have it, so why do I need to ask again? You know what, we've asked this question, we've wondered this too, and so we've put it to the test with the TSHA. Why do I need to have this field right here? Can't I just send them the resource and then ask them for a donation? And so here's the experiment. Version B, or version A, was basically this normal flow of email to landing page to instant donation page. But version B, they said, well, what if we sent the email, and when you click the link, you come straight to the instant donation page, and it says this: thank you, your free copy of the ebook was just sent to your email. So there's a workflow that runs in the background. When they click the link, it sends them the email with the ebook. And they go right to the instant donation page, right into the donation appeal. Theoretically, if we cut out this middle step, couldn't we get more people to give? There's maybe less friction in the process. And so they ran these two different versions of this campaign side by side, splitting their file in half. And what they saw was that cutting out this middle step of the landing page actually led to a 41% decrease in donations. And on top of that, a 32% decrease in average gift. And there's likely a couple things going on, because as you move through this process that you see on the left, you have to choose, yes, I want to open this email. Yes, I'm going to choose to read this email. Yes, I'm going to click to the landing page and read more. Yes, I'm going to read through the landing page. Yes, I'm going to get this ebook. There's a sequence of these little micro yeses before you get to this ultimate donation appeal. And every time you say yes to some sort of smaller ask, you're actually building momentum through the process, and it makes you more likely to say yes to this next larger ask, like the donation appeal. So we have that going on, this idea of momentum being built throughout the process. And then at the same time, if I cut out that landing page, I don't get nearly the same amount of context as to why is this offer valuable to me and to my life and to the things that I care about. But if I have to read through the page, I clearly understand the value. And then if I have to fill out the form, I'm committing that I think this is valuable. I have to put in a little bit of work to get something back for free, but it helps reinforce the value of it to me. So then by the time I get to the instant donation page, I really feel like you've given me something of great value. And so I might actually turn that around into an act of generosity. I'm going to turn my gratitude into generosity. So there's a couple factors at play here. But the ultimate principle behind all of these different priming ideas is that donors are relational people, just like you, just like me. And so we need to invest in the relationship we have with our donors before we ask them for money. Sounds simple, but oftentimes we seem to fail at leading into this idea of cultivation. So let's try to do that this season. Now, how do you actually make your donation appeals? After you've primed and framed the appeals coming later, after you've cultivated people this season, how do you make your appeal and make it effective? And ultimately, as much as is possible, in our emails, we want to make them feel like this sort of handwritten note, handwritten letter that you might receive in your mailbox. We want to make a personal appeal. And so we're going to go through a framework for a personal appeal that you can send. You might send several different appeals throughout the season. We're going to focus on one that we call the year-end overview email. And the ultimate goal here is to explain the stakes heading into a new year. And then ultimately, we're going to ask for a gift, ask for a donation right away. There's probably things related to your cause and at your organization that have changed this year compared to the year before. Maybe some things have gotten better. Maybe you've been able to see some incredible impact. We should share that with our donors. Maybe there's some setbacks and some new hurdles and challenges to actually solving the problem that your organization exists to solve. We should be able to share those. And maybe you have an interesting vision and some specific goals for 2022. Here's where we're going. Here's what we want to accomplish. We need to outline what's changed, what's happened, and where are we going. We're explaining the stakes going into the new year and really giving people clear reasons why they should give and what they're actually supporting. It's an email from a few years ago from Oxfam that we received that I think is a pretty interesting framework that you can start to replicate as you put your appeals together. There's a lot we could say about the design and things about this email. Ultimately, we're trying to make them feel personal. We'll look at an experiment in a moment around that. But let's look at what the copy says and sort of the flow of the copy. And they start by outlining what's the problem. And the way that they do that is really impactful. I'm going to read it out loud because I think it's helpful to hear it. It says that UN agencies have just announced that the number of hungry people in the world has increased for the first time this century. We're witnessing it firsthand. Right now, 7 million people are on the brink of famine in Yemen. In South Sudan, millions more are preparing for what's being called the hungriest start to a year on record. This is a huge problem. And you can feel, I think you can feel the weight of it. Just as I'm reading that, and I've read this like 100 times, I start to get like little goosebumps, like, oh boy, like this is huge. This is a huge problem. And clearly me as an individual donor, I can't go solve this problem, but you're clearly outlining what needs to be changed in the world, or maybe in your community. And then you have to move into a solution. There's a big problem, but do I believe that it can be solved? What's the way forward? So they move into the solution. And there's probably more they could unpack here, but they say this: in emergency zones around the world, there's a dire need for supplies, safe sanitation, and clean water. So some clear things that can actually make an impact. But what can I do? What can I, the donor, do? How does my $50 gift actually make an impact? And they start to move into those details. We need your support to help people survive these crises, ensure we can keep successful poverty-fighting efforts in more than 90 countries going strong. The only way we can do both, respond to this crisis, while also building long-term solutions, is with your help. Now, there's probably more they could do to unpack in clear words and language, what does my gift actually do in a tangible way? But this is the framework. They're moving from problem to solution to my role to play, my impact that I can make as the donor, and then into the call to action that's actually coupled with an incentive. An incentive is not a new reason to give. It's not a core reason to give. It might be a reason to give now rather than later, or maybe give at a higher level. And they say this: make your tax-deductible gift to Oxfam help the world's poorest people build better lives. Now, pretty much everyone today at this summit and on this session right now could probably raise their hand and say, yeah, a donor can make a tax-deductible donation to my organization. So this isn't super exclusive to them. So there might be some other incentives you can weave in. Is there an opportunity to have your gift matched today, and maybe today only, or this week, or by a certain deadline? Is there a countdown clock to your deadline to elevate urgency? Is there a free gift someone can get with a donation? Maybe there's a threshold-based premium. Give $75 and we're going to send you this free gift as a thank you. So there might be other incentives that are unique and exclusive to your organization that you can weave in here. But then ultimately, we need to call our donors to action in a very clear way. We're not going to ask donors to stand with us, because I don't know what that means. Does that mean you want me to sign a pledge or a petition or donate or volunteer? I'm not sure what that means. We want to clearly ask donors to give. We're also not going to ask them in the call to action to go solve world hunger. What's their role to play? Their role to play is to actually make a donation today. Help reach our $3.5 million goal before the end of the year. Make a clear call to action. What we see through experimentation is that leaning into this humanized design, even if the copy doesn't change at all, a more human relationship being built through email can actually lead to more donations. So you see the control here. The original email has a logo at the top and a donate button, this big hero image. You've got a goal, a designed goal, and their progress to their goal included in there as well. And then it moves into the copy. Version B looks fairly different. All the copy is exactly the same, but now the logo is gone, the donate button is gone. It looks like it's formatted using basically Gmail or Outlook. There's some other little design artifacts that could probably go away to make it look more like a true plain text email that you send to a friend or a coworker out of your Gmail inbox. But it's a lot closer to a humanized email than version A. And what they saw running this experiment was a 29% increase in donations when they communicated, even just in the design, more like a human being. What I want to do is look at a bit of a more optimized example. I had some different critiques of that Oxfam email. There's maybe ways that we can improve that, certainly some ideas to test. So let's look at an example from a more civilized age. Again, I mentioned my Star Wars fandom and nerdery, so we're going to look at Star Wars in part because it's entertaining for me and it's really fun. But on the other hand, I think it's helpful to see that this framework doesn't just apply to an organization trying to solve world hunger. It can apply to something as fictional as the Rebel Alliance, and it can also apply to you. So let's zoom out of this specific example of Oxfam, and let's look at how this could apply really to any organization. Now, I'm going to read some of this out loud because they have a big problem to solve. The Rebel Alliance is trying to bring down the Galactic Empire. They need to communicate this problem to their donors. They say it's a dark time. Although the Death Star has been destroyed, Imperial troops have driven the rebel forces from their hidden base and pursued them across the galaxy. This means more innocent civilians are being hurt and they're being enslaved. They're under the tyranny of the Empire. The Empire is killing millions of life forms across the galaxy. This is a huge, gigantic problem. Different than world hunger, but we can still focus on what's the problem our organization is trying to solve. And what's the problem that our donor wants to see solved in the world as well. And then move into the solution, because there needs to be a clear vision for where they're going. So how do you actually bring down the Empire and restore peace and justice to the galaxy? There's still reason for hope. The Rebel Alliance is preparing an all-out assault on the second Death Star with aims to end this galactic civil war and bring down the Imperial fleet. That's still not something that I, the donor, can actually do. So then what's my role? I see where you're going, but how can I play a part? Here's the impact. That's where I need your help. First name, calling them by first name, by their first name, leading into the human aspect of the relationship. Your donation will do the following things: provide blasters, provide food, provide fuel, critical equipment, and help us blast through the Starfleet. So what can I do? I can donate to provide these critical resources in order to see this solution enacted and this problem solved. So we have to move around to what's the clear impact the donor can make. And then ultimately, they're adding in an appeal. When you donate 100 credits to the Alliance today, we'll send you a free piece of the first Death Star to commemorate the fight that we are in together. So we're using incentive to get someone to give. It's not a new reason to give, but it's a reason they might give now instead of later. And then ultimately, the call to action is not let's go blow up the Death Star. It's not let's go bring down the Galactic Empire. The call to action is, will you consider donating? You can make your donation here. What's my next step? My next step is not to solve the problem. My next step is to do my part and donate. So clearly outline that call to action, make your donation here, and then ultimately sign up by a believable person. Princess Leia is advocating for this cause every single day. So sign up by a real person. And ultimately, the principle here is that donors are logical people. We said they're relational, but they're also logical, and they need real reasons why they should give to you. Just saying it's getting close to the end of the year and we want to finish strong is not a real reason to give, because every single organization can say that. How do we differentiate ourselves from other organizations that are maybe fighting a similar battle or working towards a similar cause? How do we differentiate ourselves from organizations in totally different sectors and verticals? Because I, the donor, might be able to give just a limited amount this year. Where can I actually make the most impact? You need to clearly outline that for me so that I trust you when I give, that you're going to make an impact on a cause that I care about. The third category of email is the closers. Just like a closing pitcher in a baseball game, but you can only put in at the end of the game. You can't put them in at the beginning of the game because they're going to burn out really fast and not be quite as effective. They're only effective at a specific time, and that is to really close the deal, end the game, and win the game. The same thing is true of this type of email I call the closer. It's only effective at the end of your campaign as urgency is high. You can't send this email at the beginning. It's not going to work. We can only send it as we're getting close to the deadline when urgency is high. And so closer email number one is the deadline email. The ultimate goal is to remind donors of the impending deadline without rehashing all of the reasons to give. We don't want to renew and fully explain our value proposition again. You've been doing this now over the course of the season through your cultivation emails, through priming and framing, through your various donation appeals. We don't need to rehash everything again. We might just need to remind people that there's a deadline to give. This email from the Special Olympics, I think, is a really cool example. Certainly have thoughts on how to improve maybe the design and the flow of it, but everything in this email basically does one of two things. So everything I'm highlighting in red for you is lifting the sense of urgency. Your gift is tripled when you donate before midnight tomorrow. There's a giant countdown clock. And then it says, give now, give now, give now, but only if you give before midnight tomorrow. This is basically half the email is saying, it's time to give. The deadline is coming. And then everything else in the email, everything I'm highlighting in green for you, is an additional incentive to give. In this case, it's leaning into a matching opportunity. Your gift is tripled. Triple the support, triple the joy, triple, all caps. And it says 3 times as many athletes get access to healthcare. 3 times as many athletes step off the sidelines and feel the rush of taking the field for a big game. 3 times as many athletes live in a unified world without discrimination. And then ultimately that final call to action, I don't have it highlighted, but the URL says specialolympics.org/triple your gift. Basically everything is either increasing urgency or it's leaning into incentive. They're not new reasons to give, they're reasons that they should give now, and maybe even at a higher level. What we see through experimentation is this is quite an effective strategy to not rehash everything, but lean into this high urgency reminder. So in these emails, they're both sharing the same type of value proposition, the same ultimate call to action. They're both sent on the last day of the year, but they have different character counts. You can see that on your screen because version A spends a lot more time rehashing the value proposition, all the core reasons to give, where version B eliminates some copy, so that the focus of the email is more around this quick reminder to give, focusing on the deadline. It doesn't rehash everything. And so version B, this quick reminder, has 32% less copy, but it led to a 30% increase in donations. Again, this is different than your main donation appeals that you've been sending throughout the season. This only works as you get close to the deadline. You can't just send an email on November 15th with super high urgency and say, you need to give, and give no reasons. We have to paint the picture, tell the story over the course of the season, and then use this type of closer email to really seal the deal and remind people to give. And then you can actually send one more. This is the reminder, and it's basically a reminder of the reminder. The goal here is to send a personal human email to make sure that your potential donor didn't miss your first email, didn't miss that initial deadline email. And it can look something like this. This is from Jacinta at World Concern. I think it's a cool email, because right at the top, it just says, Pam, just wanted to send you a quick note to make sure you receive this email. I don't want you to miss out on the chance to double your gift. This looks like an email that was sent straight out of Outlook or straight out of Gmail, something that you would send to a friend or a family member or a coworker. Because if you've sent something, we'll say to a coworker, and you're expecting them to respond, and now you're getting close to like a project deadline or something like that, you might send an email exactly like this, where you'll find the initial one, you hit forward or reply, and you send it again and say, hey, did you see this? That's how people naturally use email. So we want to make sure our emails look like real people naturally using email. So they insert the little note at the top, and then below is the rest of the email, the original deadline email with a little bit more context about giving. You can send the same type of an email. In fact, we found it to be effective in a lot of different formats. In this example, this is an email that we sent out to try to get more people to sign up for a webinar. So totally different context, but it works in a lot of different contexts because it leans into this idea of communicating like a person. Normally, if people hadn't signed up for a webinar, we might send a resend email that's taking a new angle, trying to explain differently what the value of the content is. And that's what version A did. Still the same webinar we're asking people to sign up for, but it took a different angle on the value proposition. But version B forwarded the same original email, and it just inserted this little note at the top. It says, hi, I emailed you last week. Notice you haven't responded yet. Will you be joining us on the webinar next week? Here's the link to register. And then inserted below is the original invitation email. And by using this natural communication style, it actually led to a 20% increase in people signing up. So again, you can use the same tactic just to remind people to give at the end of the year. And the ultimate idea here is that donors are busy people just like you are. This season is the busiest time of year in basically every single regard. And sometimes people just forget, and they might need a human, gentle, kind reminder. Maybe they decided 2 weeks ago because you sent like some really good donation appeal that they wanted to give, but they actually read it in their bed in the morning on their phone, and they're not ready to give right then and there. So you won them over. They want to give to you, but they haven't had a chance to come back and actually go to your page and give. So they might just need a simple reminder. Here's your slightly more sophisticated playbook for year-end emails. Number 1, send cultivating emails. We have to lean into the relationship. Number 2, make your appeals personal and also make them logical. We want to send humanized email, but we want to give real, concrete reasons for people to give to us rather than to some other organization, or maybe not at all. And third, we want to send clear reminders to give because, again, sometimes people just forget and they need a kind reminder. And don't forget to communicate like a human being throughout the entire season and in all of your fundraising, because people don't give to marketing machines and email machines. They don't give to faceless organizations. They give to people. One more thing that I'll leave you with, and yes, one more Star Wars reference. Sorry, not sorry. In this movie, The Force Awakens, which is technically a Star Wars movie, but it's not quite the same. In this movie, they spend pretty much the entire film trying to find the map to Luke Skywalker. If you don't know who Luke Skywalker is or know anything about Star Wars, he is a Jedi Master, and they're trying to go recruit him to help them bring down the evil First Order, but they can't find him. So they know there's a map out there. They're trying to find the map so they can track him down and recruit him. And when they finally get the map, they're excited. They open it up. We're finally going to see where he's at. We can go recruit him for our cause. And then they're disappointed because it's just one piece of the puzzle. It's a critical piece of the puzzle, but it only looks at a small portion of like the star map, a portion they were missing, but they don't know where in the galaxy it actually fits until the end of the film, where R2-D2 miraculously wakes up and has the entire star map except for that little puzzle piece, and they put them together and bam, they can find Luke Skywalker. Amazing. This is the most critical piece of the puzzle, but it doesn't actually work, and it's not actually effective without the entire picture. And your year-end fundraising is basically the same, where this playbook in the way that you enact your year-end campaign is one of the most critical pieces of the picture, but you are not going to see the results that you want to see if you have not been stewarding and cultivating your donors well throughout the rest of the season. So here's what you can do if you haven't been cultivating well throughout the rest of the season. I'd encourage you to start today or this week to start sending a weekly cultivation email to your donors. Now, it doesn't have to be as hard as maybe it sounds. I'm going to show you an experiment from an organization that took this type of an approach and saw an incredible result. But they were starting to see a lot of drop-off from their email subscribers. Basically, 1 in 4 email subscribers weren't opening their emails anymore. They weren't engaging in any meaningful way. And so this organization wanted to figure out, how do we just re-engage these people and get them to connect with us? And so what they did was they split their email file in half. And version A, which is the first half of their file, received the same exact cadence of emails, no additional cultivation, same cadence of emails they were used to receiving. But version B, the other half of their email file, received 1 additional cultivation email every single week, sent on Fridays, sent from a human being with a personalized design. It looks like an email sent straight out of Gmail. Clear human copy, single call to action. And that call to action did not ask them to give. It asked them to go engage with some piece of free content, like an article or a blog that helps the potential donor and the subscriber stay connected to the cause. It keeps them informed about what's changing related to the cause and what type of impact is being made by this organization. It's just content that's free to access with no donation appeal attached to it. It's just cultivation. And by doing this for 6 months, they saw a 42% increase in online revenue from this group. You can do this too. Maybe it's not weekly, maybe it's every other week, but you just need to write an email to your donors to keep them connected to the cause, whether that links to a blog or an article or a video, or maybe it's just a story that you heard this week with no call to action, but you wanted to share a testimony or a story with your donors to keep them connected. That's the ultimate goal here. How do we stay connected? How do we build a relationship? And how do we cultivate? Because that's ultimately going to make everything you do this year end that much more effective. Last thing for you, before I think we have a little time for questions, is I'd love for you to activate this free year-end course. You can zoom in and out to the different parts that are helpful for you. It walks through 17 different types of emails that you can build into your year-end timeline. It's going to give you ideas to optimize those emails, as well as some things you can do on your website to keep improving. Again, all based on data, testing, and research. So you can scan the QR code on your screen if you want to. Just pull out your phone, grab your camera, look at that QR code and head to the landing page, or you can type in this URL, nextafter.com/year-end-course, and activate that for free. Thank you so much. And I believe we have a little bit of time for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nathan. This has been fantastic. I think all of this will be so helpful in crafting all of those communications. It's a lot going on at year end, right? But this
Absolutely.
gives us a really, really great framework and playbook to follow. So thank you so much. I do encourage everyone to go ahead and take a look at that year end course. I put the link in the chat. Yeah, let's go over some questions. There's plenty in there. Let me pull up the Q&A pane again. But sorry, I have a couple windows open. All right. Sorry, it's hiding behind my.
It's all good. I get that.
All right. And then there's some in the chat too, I believe.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, so do you send email/letters to folks who have already donated, and how do you recommend segmenting? That's from Shion.
Yeah, that's a great question. In part, it kind of depends on when they give. You might have sort of a holding period of like, if you've given, you probably don't want to send them that donation appeal that's going to go out tomorrow. Like that's probably not a great experience. Maybe you hold them for a week or so. But it's quite possible, and it happens often. You can probably look in your data and historical records and see this, that if someone might give towards the beginning of the season, and then they also give during that last week. There might be multiple opportunities that someone is actually going to give to you during this season. So especially, I think it's pretty common a common question that comes up too is like, well, someone gives on Giving Tuesday, should then I hold them out through the rest of the campaign? I wouldn't. Again, maybe hold them out for a week, so you're not just badgering them with email appeals and things like that. Definitely send them all the cultivation you're planning to send, and then maybe drop them back into your appeals the following week and the week after. So don't totally exclude them, but maybe give them a little bit of a break. That's just my recommendation.
Yeah. Great, thanks. And then an anonymous attendee asked, do you have any advice on how to acquire new donors during the season?
Sure. Well, on the one hand, all of these strategies are not just emails to send to your existing donors, but if you have an email file of people that follow your newsletter, are subscribed, are engaged with content, this is a great opportunity, especially using that cultivation to activate those people and convert them into donors. Specifically, those free offer type of emails, so going from like survey to instant donation page, or an ebook to an instant donation page. That's really the core model that we use to acquire new donors online, whether it's activating people on your email file or going out and actually running some advertising using something like Facebook to go target ideal donors, people that don't know you yet, but maybe look like your donors, and offer them some sort of free content that moves into an instant donation page. So rather than just trying to acquire an email and letting them sit for 6 months and then hoping they somehow come around, you can actually acquire instant donors using that same type of model, using advertising as your traffic source.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Nathan. This has been so wonderful. I think that's all the questions. We can hang out for another minute or two in case any more come in, but I wanted to, again, just say thank you to Nathan and NextAfter for being a sponsor of the year-end fundraising fair and making it free for everyone to participate, and just the great content. NextAfter also added to our prize pack. So I'm going to put those details in the chat as well. This will all be emailed out to you, but you get a free NextAfter Institute membership. So if you like Nathan's chat today, you can consume more wonderful content like this on an ongoing basis, which is absolutely amazing. So you can get access to 8 online fundraising courses, monthly members, webinars, and so much more. So feel free to go ahead and use the code CAUSEVOX YEFF at the checkout page. So again, we're going to be sending out the email with all these details. And also that course is in the chat, but we will certainly go ahead and send that out to everyone afterwards as well, in case you missed it in the chat. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Best of luck to everyone as you're diving into year end. Hopefully you get lots of good strategies today and tomorrow, I believe, too. Sessions tomorrow as well?
Yeah, we added an extra half day. We had so many great sessions I couldn't choose, and added a few extra just The more insight, the merrier, I always feel. So
I love it.
um
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nathan.